In this video, I'm going to reveal our entire YouTube production process, from ideation and writing to editing, and then on to tools we use for publishing. If you're ready, let's jump on in. When planning out our projects, I use a tool called Cascade, which basically lets me itemize each project that we're working on and assign it out to different people on the team. So for example, this video here, you can see that I have write script done. And we actually just filmed this video and I'm filming right now, so I'm going to tick this off. And I've assigned the edit to Rikard, so he can see that this is due. He also sees the thumbnail, and I'm assigned to publishing. And you can see I have a few other projects happening at the same time assigned to my other editor, Jiva. So once everything's scheduled, it's time for research and writing, because these are educational, right? We have to break down the different steps. Now we use Google Docs for our script writing. Now, I don't use a teleprompter, and the reason why I write out the different steps is that it just helps, I guess, get burned into my brain so I can always know the flow that I'm going for. And I think that's important because if you're just winging it, it can get kind of disorganized and then it becomes an editing nightmare, right? And the reason why we like using Google Docs is that it's great for collaboration. So here's an example script that Jiva wrote. You can see sometimes he'll leave some editing notes, but normally most of the edits are improvised inside of the edit itself. For the scripts that Jiva writes, he actually does all of the screen recordings himself. Now, if I'm recording a script that I wrote, I do the screen recordings myself because I'm demoing in the application itself and I actually wrote the effects. So there are kind of two different filming workflows there. Now, talking about my setup, I actually made a video on my live stream setup. So if you want to learn about the tripods, the microphones, the lights that I use, you can go ahead and watch that video. So once I'm done filming, I just take my SD card, pop it into my laptop, and I upload the files into LucidLink, which is our shared file space that we use to share our media and our projects, so everything stays online. Once the footage is offloaded to LucidLink, I basically set up a Premiere Pro project. So let's do that right now. I have a new project here, and I'll save it into the correct folder on our LucidLink file space inside of the project folder. So because this is a Jiva project, you can see that I've only recorded my audio files from my Rode microphone and my talking head video from my Canon EOS R. So I'm going to take this video clip here and drop it into the timeline. And the reason why I just drop it into the timeline is it creates a sequence based on my clip settings. So the frame rate is correct and the resolution is correct right off the bat. So then I can take the first Rode mic track, then I will take the next video clip, drop it here, take the second audio clip, drop it down here, and the last one, and take the third audio track. And then I need to synchronize it, obviously. So I'm going to lasso and select these two and select synchronize. And I will do that for the other two as well. And the reason why I do this is I always want these projects to get done as quickly as they can. And just by doing the setup, it saves Jiva and Rikard a lot of time. So you can see I have two audio tracks. I have my lav mic on audio track 1, which is linked with the camera audio. And then I have the Rode microphone, which is recorded into my computer. I only had the lav here as a backup, just in case something happens with this microphone, which I recommend. So I actually lasso and select the camera and the audio from the lav mic. I press Command L or Control L on a Windows. So that way I can just select the audio here and press Command Shift E or Control Shift E if you're on a PC to disable that. So that way I just have the Rode mic. The last thing I do is add our color grade template. So what I do is I actually lasso and select the video clips, right click, and I click nest. And I just call this color grade, for example. Double click on this. Now I can add my color grade template on top. Now I have it saved as its own Premiere Pro project, saved on our LucidLink file space. It's just adjustment layers with effects. So if we go to effect controls, you can see that there are a ton of Lumetri effects that are specific to my scene because I'm in the same setup every single time, so we can use a template. You can see the first effect here is actually a plugin by Red Giant, and it's part of the Magic Bullet suite. It's called Colorista, and we use this as a guided walkthrough because it really helps you get the whites and the blacks, the shadows, and everything perfect. Premiere Pro doesn't have that built in. I really wish that they did have that. In addition to the other Lumetri color effects, which are built in. We also have Cosmo, which is a skin smoothing, and we also have a gamma compensation LUT just to make sure that the export looks the same as what it does in Premiere Pro. So all I'm going to do is just select these two adjustment layers, copy it, and then go to color grade and then just press Command V or Control V just to get the color on here. So you can see that this is the before and the after. So I just apply this inside of the nest. So that way back in the main comp here, the editing comp, it's just one layer. So now once this project is set up, I will then write on Slack that the project is ready for editing. Because Rikard is editing this video that you're watching right now, let's get him on a video call and let's walk through his video editing process. Okay, Rikard, tell us about your process of editing a gal tutorial.
Absolutely. You see that there are two layers here, and it's the camera layer with the grade inside of it, and then we also have the screen. I like to work non-destructively, which means that whatever you do, you can always go back and fix something. And what I like to do is to put the screen in a nest. Same with the cam that we were talking about. The color grading is on here, so we never have to care about that. For this purpose though, and for whenever we edit, I usually turn it off because it uses a lot more power from your computer, and it's just unnecessary while you're editing. Before we render, we always put it back on again, so it's there, it's just passive right now, like disabled. Then there is another camera angle we usually use, which is the reaction cam. If you go and reveal the cam grade, that the nest is called, in the project folder here, you can copy and paste it, and then you rename this to React. And then we'll drag this one out on top of everything else. We go into the React nest and we delete everything that's in there, but then we take the actual nest from the camera. Now we can manipulate this layer without it affecting what's inside the camera grade. I have a preset here that is called Gal React Cam. And you see, it becomes a circle. And then I press Control Alt R, whatever that is on Macs. Yes, I use PC. Then I have a preset for the actual border around the camera, which I add here. And then I'll drag it under and I'll remove the first shape. So what I like to do is that I like to highlight all the camera files and I disable them for now. So whenever I need to cut to the full talking head camera, what I can do now is basically that I highlight all three of these layers and I disable the React Cam and the screen, and I enable or re-enable the full half-body shot. And that I can do back and forth. So between each cut I do here, let's say I do this, I'm just gonna highlight all the clips that I know are gonna be full frame, and then I use the short key to actually enable/disable.
After you get this set up, and now that you explain the layers, what is the next step? Like, do you just go through and basically cut out all the bad takes? Like, what do you do at this stage?
Usually we have a script that accompanies the video, so there's always something we can rely on. The way I prefer to do it is to actually edit from the end all the way to the beginning, because I would assume that every last take you do of something is the best one. And that means that what I have to do is just to see when you're basically talking about something else, and I just cut everything in between there. And that's a big time saver. And after I've done all of this, it looks something like this. And as you can see, it went from being a 1 hour and 4 minute video down to 20. And this is the first cut basically. So the way I approach a video in almost all the cases is that I go through a video 4 times. The first time I assemble it and I cut it down. The second time I add all zooms, and I also add just text layers basically as notes. I know, for instance, here is gonna be her intro. So what I do is that I press T and I'll write intro, for instance. So basically I use labels as a means of telling myself so that when I zoom out, I can see what each color means. So it's like, this is B-roll, this is notes that will be deleted, and so on. So I've chosen brown to be the node of edits I will add and then remove. So on my timeline, whenever I'm done, there shouldn't be any brown labels left on my timeline. And another reason why, at least what I think is a good idea, is that if I am unable to continue with this video and I have to send it off to Kelsey, then she does not have to look through the whole process and the whole video and try to come up with her own edits, but rather she can look at these notes and she can just make those edits instead. That's where LucidLink really comes in handy for us.
All right, we actually have a question here for you, Rikard, around this from SL3 Productions. They said, do you follow a general editing schedule for editing? For example, how much time you set aside for first line editing, coloring, audio, etc. And does schedule change where there's more complex graphics or elements involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I have some rule of thumbs basically to try to estimate how long something will take. Obviously, the amount of edits per minute will change and dictate, how long the project itself will take. But usually I would say double the amount of the footage you have, and obviously it changes and it doesn't apply to everything. Then I also always try, and this is both me and Jiva, we came up with the idea of setting a time limit for each minute for every video. But one thing you can do to kind of help this and not get stuck on each edit is actually to add these notes, as I was saying. And the reason why you want to add all of these notes as well is kind of to see how the video pans out in terms of where are all the edits. Do you put a lot of edits at one spot, then maybe you can skip out one or two of them and kind of spread them out instead. Edits themselves should not be the main character in the story. They are there to help you and to help illustrate something or to just make something that's more technical to get a little bit more interesting. I then go back a third time and I basically just go to all the places where I've left the notes and I start making those edits. And as a last thing, I add music. And I know this is a little bit controversial because a lot of the times you edit to the music, right? And I still do that too. It's just that specifically for Premiere Gal videos, they are very structured already. So I already know what kind of, tone and vibe we want from the music. So it's not necessarily added to create different emotions per se, but basically to set a general tone of the video, if that makes sense.
Let's talk a little bit about adding zooms. When are moments, for example, where you're maybe we need to zoom in at this moment? What makes you make that decision? And also, what tools do you use to make that zoom fast and efficient?
Honestly, I just go by feeling. There's one time where I specifically use it, and that is whenever Kelsey takes a breath. So I can already see that here, for instance, is a breath, and here is a breath, and probably here. I see that because there's a little bit of a bump in the waveform here.
That's a skill that you develop. It's like a sixth sense. You can notice breaths in a waveform. I love that.
Then what I do, and this is really cool, this was introduced to me by Kelsey when I started working with her, and this tool and this plugin changed my life. The preset I'm talking about is Film Impact's Motion Tween. The way it works is that I have a preset for Gal and I put it on between two cuts here. If I take the second clip and I change this to, let's say, 125, then you can see that going from no edit to the zoom, it actually makes an animation for you, and it looks something like this.
Now, all these updates,
and that is amazing. It saves so much time. Either you can, change it by just moving the slider here and make the transition longer, or there are, of course, different settings inside of the plugin.
At the end of the day, when you're pumping out YouTube content like Rikard is, time is everything. And so if he can shave off even just 20 minutes of time, it's going to help you get to bed sooner, go out to dinner more often. It's just, these little things make a huge difference in an editor's life.
Wait, you mean I can go outside?
You can be released now, Rikard, from your cave. So, Rikard, why don't you go to musicbed.com and show how we search and license music for our video edits?
Absolutely. I usually go by genre. I go by pop and soul. Sometimes I also add some hip-hop in there. And then for mood, this is right now saved from when I added an outro, which is carefree, chill, and serious. If we're looking for an intro, I like that to be a little bit more energized, so I would probably change this out to something like uplifting and happy.
One thing that Musicbed has come out with this year is the AI-powered search by song. You can see it's popped up here. Essentially, it lets you search by any popular song. I really like Chapel Roan right now. Let's try to find an intro track that has a similar vibe to Hot to Go. So you can see you can actually click on that song. It automatically pops up and it will find music that has a similar vibe. Plus, it'll have the instrumental version. So we can just play this first one, the spin with colors, for example. What do you think? Do you think it's a good vibe?
I don't know if it's exactly something we would have used for an intro, but it definitely sounds inspired by Chapel Roan.
So if you're interested in Musicbed, you can get a 2-week free trial to explore the library and see if it works in your workflow, and I've put a link down below. So Rikard, let's show them actually taking one of these music tracks that we have licensed and, kind of editing it to that intro section.
All right, so as you can see, I have imported a song from Musicbed now straight into my project.
Let's take a look at what's coming new.
We have a guitar here that plays. Maybe this isn't, exactly what we want, but here it's way more energized than we have the drums coming in. So I would much rather start at this point. As you also can hear probably, is that it is very loud. So we need to decrease the audio here. You can press G and then you have it adjust to gain by. And then I say somewhere between -18 to -24. It all depends on your setup and so on. For this one, we'll do -18 to start off with, and we can try it again.
Let's take a look at what's coming new to Premiere Pro.
It's a little bit too loud still, so we always add a little bit of effects to her voice to kind of bump it up and just make it sound a little bit more full. It's kind of like if you're thinking of a image or a video that you have it raw and then you can always edit it to kind of make it a little bit better. Same goes for the voice. We can just do it really quick here we see that it's audio track 2. So I go to the track mixer here and I pick something under compression called a hard limiter, and then I double click and I usually just put the limit to -0.1 dB. And let's play it back now and hear what it sounds like.
Let's take a look at what's coming new to Premiere Pro this fall. Now, all these updates...
That sounds much better. And already I think that we're good to go on the audio levels right here.
If you want more breakdowns like this with Rikard or Jiva on the channel, be sure to drop the scissor emoji in the comment section below, and maybe we'll even do a live stream once, which would be kind of fun. Cave to the Cross podcast wrote, how much do you use After Effects as a part of your process, and when does it come in your workflow?
Yeah, I use it on every project, I would say, but I don't use it a lot. Basically, the main thing I use it for is rotoscoping. It's very easy to use because what you can do is basically just right-click and open up in After Effects. And that creates a dynamic link, which means that whatever change you make in After Effects will automatically get updated in Premiere.
Rikard, show us one more tip here in your final editing groom.
Absolutely. So here is the final version of this video. And as you can see, it's pretty colorful. I like to break down each segment in different colors just to both get an overall grasp of what is, taking up the most space. It also makes it easier for me to know where I am in the process, and it just keeps me more organized, basically.
Can you show folks how you export the final video and send it off to me to review?
Yeah, absolutely. So after we're done with the edit, I go to the start and I press I for the in point, and then I basically go to the end and I press O for the out point. So we have the whole sequence marked, because sometimes I like to leave out some things I might be a little unsure about if we should keep or not. So instead of deleting them, I just move them further back in the timeline. And that is because if we decide during the feedback round that oh, maybe we should bring this back, then it's good for me to just know that, and I'll just take that part and put it in again. As the last thing before we go to the export tab is to re-enable the color grading again, and then we press either Control M or go to the export tab. You can choose whatever type of quality you want to render in. I usually go by having the highest bitrate, and then because YouTube have a tendency to compress the footage anyways, I like to keep the target bitrate at around either 12 to 15 because it's gonna get compressed to that anyways. Make sure that the range is set to source in and out, because then it will actually target the in and out point instead of having the whole entire source, because then it will edit all the things I didn't want to. That might have happened a couple of times. I'm not gonna lie, maybe I forget that sometimes.
Once Rikard exports it, of course, I can see the video file itself up on LucidLink, which is great. But Rikard uploads that video file onto Webster, and I can just click on that and just watch it through, see if there are any errors. Maybe he forgot to set the out point and there's like a bunch of black at the end.
What do you mean?
Thank you so much, Rikard, for walking us through your process of editing the videos. So once a video is done, it's time to upload it to YouTube. You can see here I have an example of the back end of what this how to use tracking markers and remove them inside of After Effects video looks like. So you can see that this is the title that I chose. I use VidIQ, which is basically kind of like a plugin for Google Chrome that allows you to get scores, like SEO scores for your title. So you can see that AI has given me some suggestions for titles that might perform well, but I kind of kept it with the traditional of how to use, because I find that when people are Googling things on like how to do something, it tends to come up a little bit better. And then in my description, I just tried to explain what the video is about, include my time-coded chapters. And to generate my time-coded chapters, I actually use Firecut. And Firecut is great because it uses AI to basically transcribe your video and then summarize it based on timecode. And that saves me time because now I don't have to do it myself. I'll just generate that and copy and paste it in here. And I made a full review on Firecut, which you can check out. I'll put a link in the description box below. And then I'll put any other tools or links that I have here. And then the tags is what is important, right? And this lets you put in any tag you want. But of course, with VidIQ, you can boost it and it gives you tags that have a higher search volume. VidIQ will give it a score out of 100 and it will tell you a checklist of things to do. This all helps with how the video performs. Once the video is live, we share it out on Instagram as an Instagram story. Occasionally, we will write blog posts about different videos. You can see we have a blog post here, and I have a writer that goes in and kind of summarizes the tutorial and also adds tags as well, because some of you like text versions of tutorials instead of actually watching the video version. So yeah, that's pretty much our workflow. We have a lot of fun creating these tutorials for you on this channel. And oftentimes when it comes to ideation, I'll look at comments that you leave. For example, if you wanted a topic on tracking markers, that was actually requested by one of you. And I thought it was a great topic. So if you have any ideas, of course, just leave them as comments. I really, really appreciate it when you guys contribute to the community. I think it's awesome. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, keep creating better video with Gal. See you next time. Bye.